Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening. Presented by Carolina Lake Race. Come get with us. When the action begins in the studio, our referees for tonight's event are Elgato Azul and Carolina Real Streamers. For the viewers in attendance and Facebook and YouTube users around the world, this is the moment you've all been waiting for. Live from the Elgato Azul TV studio in Louisville, Texas, it's time! What's up, slime lovers? Welcome to the Slime Show, baby. I'm your host, Chris, a.k.a. Elgato Azul. Tonight, Jamie Dunn is his mom's 68th birthday, so he's off partying it up. Greg Mays is sick. He couldn't come on. So we got a good buddy over here, Matt Mosley, Team M&M Fishing. Welcome to the show. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. Honored to be here. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. So, what have you been up to, man?
Well, kind of like I was telling you before the show, I've been in the gym working out, trying to get a little bit of shape. It also helps with fishing, as you know, especially when you're throwing the net all morning sometimes, trying to get that bait. And it just reminded me of something. I used to watch this show, this guy named Tread Barta. Have you ever heard of Tread Barta?
That name doesn't sound familiar.
He had a fishing show on the Outdoor Channel, and he had caught like more big eye tuna than anyone in the world. Like, this guy's a fishing a legend, right?
Yeah.
And he always had a saying that was like, you got to do the work. You know, you got to do the work. So, and that's true about what we do. You know, you got to do the work.
Yeah, there's no shortcut to this.
No.
I had a post today on Facebook that was, let me see the wording. It was what all is needed to become a consistently successful trophy catfish angler. And a lot of guys were saying it's time on the water and just the work you put in. So I'd have to agree with that. There's a lot that goes into it. What's some of the things that have helped you become a successful angler?
Well, one of the best comments I saw was just to follow you around the lake. That's a good way to do it. If you guys have the same bait, just follow Chris around. You'll probably catch one or two. But honestly, like, you know, it's just like you said, being on the water, you got to get up. Like, you know, I'm a guide on Lake Texoma. My friends are like, you have the best job ever. And I'm like, oh, what time did you wake up today?
Yeah.
I'm like, I got up at 2 o'clock and it was raining. I still had to get in my boat at 3 a.m., throw the net for 2 hours and catch bait, and started fishing at 6 o'clock and pray that the 4 people on my boat catch a fish.
Yeah,
you know?
Probably the most stressful part of getting the bait every day, you know, every time. And sometimes bait ain't easy, you know, so you get up early. What happens when you struggle for bait and all of a sudden picking up? It's like, damn, I got to go get clients. I mean,
yeah. You're like, hey guys, we're trolling today because we don't have any baits. You know, you got to make the best of it and hope you catch fish. You know, you want those guys to catch more fish. I tell people on the boat all the time, there's no one that wants to catch fish more than I do, because I want to see smiles on y'all's face. Action Jackson, what's up, buddy?
Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
You and I caught some big fish together, haven't we?
How big were they? You remember?
I don't know.
Well, you remember you caught a giant and Matt had to finish it off. You remember that one?
Yeah.
How much was that one? That wasn't 80. Get out of here.
I think that fish was about 54 pounds on my boat you caught.
Was it? More? And we caught another 50 on my boat.
Yeah, that's right. The next time we went out, we caught another 50 on your boat.
Matt, you're my good luck charm, man. We need to fish more often, buddy.
Well, my boat is in the shop, so let me know when I should jump on.
Man, we
we've had good rain. I was thinking maybe tomorrow.
I would love to. I would be fishing. I would have fished today, even though it rained a little bit this morning. But this afternoon, it cleared up. I would have been out there. I would be out there tomorrow and Friday for sure. Yeah. I'm dying to fish. Like my boat, it broke again. The motor has to be rebuilt. The entire motor has to be rebuilt. I rebuilt it 2 months ago. And I burnt a piston up. I melted a piston. It just happened. The rings didn't seat when I rebuilt it. Luckily, I have an awesome mechanic who's not charging me to rebuild the whole motor. He's eating the cost. He has to buy new pistons, new rods, and he's doing it for free because he knows, hey, I paid him to do it. It didn't work out. He's going to do it again. So that's awesome, but also the timing sucks. I want to be in 5 foot of water, red, muddy water right now so bad.
I had a buddy that fished the day before yesterday, right? The day before that rain hit. He said he found him over there in 15 to 20 foot. So, but that was before the rain. So, you know where I like to be after that rain.
Yeah, I'd be right next to you if I could. But
oh man, so let's say what's up to the guys that are in here. Matt Mosley, welcome in. Richard Gadget Green, welcome in, Richard. Charles Violet, welcome in, buddy. Paul, what's up, bro? Tommy Powell's, welcome in. Alejandro Gutierrez, that's a new name, I believe. What's up, bro? My hometown boy, Jeff Martin, what's up, Jeff? Dan Weldon, Dan, welcome in, buddy. I got something over here for you, man.
Oh, I like that rod. That's one of my favorites, the Panther.
Woo! Look at the beauty. Look at the beauty. We had a raffle.
Oh, man, that looks good.
Dan won $20. Got him a heck of a setup for 20.
I was either going to put the blue or the black Mad Catz reel on mine. I like that blue. I haven't seen that before. That looks good.
Yeah, it looks real good. I've been running the Mad Catz reel. It's been working. It's smooth. I like it. What's up, Helen? Welcome in. We got Mark Vidal. Welcome in. Larry Gross. Grant Ratcliffe.
I seen Grant Ratcliffe fishes Lake Texoma by where I fish, and it was his birthday last week. And happy birthday, Grant! He was up in some of that shallow water, and I don't know how many fish he caught, but it was a ton.
On the bank or by boat?
He went up there by boat, and they camped out on the bank for his birthday, and he caught a ton of
eaters, right?
Yeah, a bunch of eaters, and they got a couple good ones they put back, but they kept a bunch to eat, and it was an awesome stringer, man. That's the kind of fishing you want when you're going for a fish fry.
Yeah. That's a cool lake to camp on, man. 80 fish, Grant said. 80 fish.
Dang,
that's crazy. Yeah, I go up there this time of year. I'm looking for one fish. I'll be honest. I just want one, and I'm going for supersized fish. I usually don't catch a ton up there. I generally do catch some good ones. Usually this month it's pretty good. Last month's usually really good. We got 280s last trip up. Crazy, dude.
Hard to beat, buddy. Hard to beat.
Oh man, let me show y'all some pictures because I didn't get to show them last week. We had Stacy Gaston on the show, and we got to talking, and I forgot to show off my Operation Vets with Nets picks. But first fish of the day, 85-pounder.
You're just bragging now, man. Those are huge.
Look at the tooth patch on that thing. It's like
when you sent me this picture, I almost texted you back I don't think his head's big enough.
Oh man,
that's huge.
Look at the lips on that thing. Crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome fish.
The second one, let me see if I can pull the second one up.
Just so everyone knows, after Chris posted these pictures, the next day I was up there trying to find them myself.
The second one was 83, but it was his wife's fish.
That's awesome.
there.
The, the best part about these fish, and I'll tell anybody this, is that you are not a fishing guide. You do not take payment from anyone. You took out veterans with Operations Vets for nets, took these people fishing for free, and put them on these kind of fish. And, that's amazing. Not everyone does that, bud. Like, I just tell you, you're a good guy for that. You're a heck of a dude.
I appreciate it. I enjoyed it as much as they did. Truly, it was freaking awesome to see them catch those fish.
I know that feeling on my boat being a guide. I hardly reel in fish anymore unless I'm fishing by myself. But watching kids and veterans and either moms or like even little kids, little girls reeling in the fish, there's something to be said. Like I get that joy just as that with my fish.
Every time we fish together, you've been all about letting Jackson catch the fish, and that's not typical for most people. They want to catch the fish, and you get a kick out of watching a little kid reeling fish just like me. I don't care what kid on the boat catches them. I just want, if there's kids on the boat, I'd rather them reel them in. To me, it's a joy. It makes me feel like a kid seeing it.
It's great. Even sometimes when I'm striper fishing, I've had kids on my boat that are 4 years old. So I'm literally holding the pole, setting the hook, getting the fish on, handing them the pole, and sometimes I even have to hold the pole while they're reeling it in, and I'm just smiling ear to ear the whole time. And then I had a little kid like a couple weeks ago, he pulled in, he was like, "This is so awesome." And I'm just like, yeah, man, that's why I fish. Not for the money, not for all that other stuff. To teach these kids how to fish and get that kind of joy, it's amazing.
Yeah, that's probably one of the things about it as well. I love watching kids catch fish. I love the excitement that they get. Makes me feel like a kid again. So.
Yeah, not only just the kids sometimes. Like I'll have friends of mine I'll take out fishing just for a fun trip, and they're 40 years old. They don't fish a lot, and they'll get a big one on, and they get excited too. That's fun too.
Yeah, that lake is something special. It's the hardest lake I've ever fished. I know a lot of guys go up there and they're like, they just get their ass kicked. I'm like, well, I mean, I did it for years. Trust me, I know how it is. So. It's not one of those lakes where you can just go up there and fish and do well.
Yeah. So someone in the chat said, what do you guys think about this Saturday on Texoma? And I would just say, with all the rain, I think we've had 4 or 5 inches of rain in the last 2 days. Go find the red water and get shallow, and that's where the fish are going to be.
Yeah, I know. Cold front hit again today. I'm getting some feedback, but whatever. So big cold front hit today, and but there's extenuating circumstances right now. There's water coming into the lake. It's almost time to spawn. So that even though it got cold, and a lot of guys are like, I'm going to move a little bit deeper. I believe there's some overriding stuff. That shallow, all that water coming in, and with us getting closer and closer to May, the fish know it's not just temperature; it's daylight hours. They know the days are starting to get longer. They start moving up there, man. It's time.
They're moving.
A bunch of fish up, right up there where we're fishing, but you might just get you 100-pounder,
You might. You never know. I was on the phone with you last week fishing shallow, and I had a big fish hit my double hook rig, and it broke my line. And I'm pretty sure you heard me say a few choice words out there. I mean, I waited for that bite for 6 hours. I knew that fish was big. I had been waiting for him. I had fished hard all day. I had caught a 20. I caught a 44. I caught a 27. Like, it was a good day of fishing. I caught 20 fish around 15 pounds. And then that rod went down, and I knew instantly it was a big fish, and it snapped my 30-pound test like it was nothing. And I think I cried the whole way home. I don't know.
Yeah, I heard someone new trips ago that pulled my rod. I keep my drag really tight. It pulled so hard I couldn't get it out of the rod holder. It was
Yeah.
grip and drag off that heavy drag reel I got. And by the time I picked it up, I felt something pop and then it was gone. I just like, wow, that was something different.
That's a good one.
That's just a really good one. Now they don't generally, small ones don't generally pull like that where you can't get it out of the rod holder.
Right. And you fish long enough, you've had enough fish on, enough bites that you kind of get the feel for as soon as the big fish gets on, I'm normally like, okay, that's a good one.
I know when I try to put the hook in him good, I generally know if it's good or not because
like when you can't move it.
It's under 50. If you hook and it's still like, that's something bigger.
I had one fool me the other day though. The same day.
Sometimes.
Yeah, well, this is what happened. That same day I got broke off, I hooked into a fish, and he like started running all through all my other lines, all through my planer boards, everything. And I was like, I can't stop this fish. He's doing whatever he wants. It's a big fish. And I fought him hard. Like I got the net ready. I was in the boat by myself. I was pumped. I was like, oh, got a good fish to take a picture of. I get him up next to the boat. It's a 12-pound fish, and my hook went right through the top of his dorsal fin. And, it just fooled me. Like, I thought he was really big.
Those fish pull different in that big lake.
Yeah.
They do. Those fish we were catching this winter when I came up there, and I fished one down your boat, and we caught a 50. We caught so many 30s, 20s, and 30s. It was crazy that day. Epic day of fishing. Then I went back the next day and got another 50, a 40, and a handful of 30s. But those fish were pulling so hard.
Yeah.
I thought that 50 was 100-pounder. I was like, holy crap. It was.
And we were in 70, 80 foot of water.
Yeah. I mean, they just stayed on the bottom for a long time, man.
Yeah.
They didn't want to come up. Pretty fun weekend of fishing. That was about as good as weekend as I've ever had up there.
Yeah, it was fun. Fish God 903 said he caught a pair of 50s and 7 foot last week on Big Mineral south of Brushy Creek. That's 2 good fish.
Yeah, it is. Anytime you get a 50, it's a great day to get 2 of them.
Yeah.
Those that you remember for a long time.
How do I not know someone that calls themselves Fish God 903? Like, that's my area code. Like, I probably need to meet this dude, right?
I bet if you said his name, you might know him.
Probably so. I like Big Mineral Arm myself. That's a good spot.
Tanks up in there. I've got some good fish right at the mouth of that thing. That big long point that sticks out. It's a pretty good spot too. That deep water outside of it too, all that stretches all the way across. I've done well out in there.
You never
got my ass kicked there.
Yeah, me too. You never know at Texoma, man. You never know.
Oh man, Mike Stokes, what's up, bro? Eagle Eyes Pienda, welcome in, buddy. Pontoon Jody's been on them 50s. Welcome in. So, yeah, those 50s are fairly frequent up on that lake. It's not like an every trip type deal, but man, there's a bunch of them in there. I mean,
yeah,
some of my best fish I'd say all my best fish have come out of that lake. It's not magical about that lake.
It is, and I honestly think it's going to get better. I think people know more now than they used to about fishing. I think more guys and guides are encouraging other guys to throw back big fish, which is great because if we want to catch 100, we can't kill every 50 and 60 pounder we catch, or they're never going to get to 100. I tell guys the same thing when we're deer hunting. Stop shooting the 140s or you're never going to shoot a 160. You gotta slow it down. Like if your customers want fish to eat, there's plenty of fish in that lake to eat. You gotta throw the big ones back. And that's the only way we're going to get it. We got to break Cody Moax's record's 121. We got to break this record.
If that light, man, I got. Is anybody else hearing that?
Yeah, just a little. It's better now.
All right. That I believe that record would have already been broken if it wasn't for the juggers. My buddy was up there last weekend. He's like, man, I couldn't even fish the inlet because there was literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of jugs up there.
Yeah,
One
it's
guy,
true.
a row of 100 stretched out across the whole inlet and wouldn't let anybody fish. The whole thing was blocked off. I said, that doesn't block me off.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. I try to drift through the middle of them, and sometimes I can, and sometimes I can't. And if it's my line or his line, it's probably not mine. I'll just be honest with you. You know,
you're not supposed to pick up your jugs, but if you get hung on one, you can cut it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like getting hung on somebody else's line, I guess. But I know this too. Last week, I caught 2 fish around 25, 30 pounds that had huge markings on their face where they had been hung in a jug or a trot line, and they eventually got off, but it messed their face up. And then me and my buddy Mike were fishing up there last week, and we hung I don't know how big that fish was, Mike. I think it was 40 something pounds, and half of its face was just messed up. So that goes to tell you how many big fish are taking those baits on those jugs and either dying maybe later on or being eaten by whoever catches them. I don't know.
Yeah, I've been around juggers enough to know that the vast majority of them keep big fish. You'll hear one occasionally say, well, y'all shouldn't hold it against all of us for what these other guys. It's the majority of them that are doing it. I am going to hold it against all of them because they don't police themselves. They're just in it for a selfish reason. Another of my guide buddies was up there this last weekend. He's like, man, I couldn't. He was the one that told me he couldn't fish the inlet because there was hundreds and hundreds of jugs clogging it up. And he said, man, I moved out to deeper water and I saw a jug off by itself swimming, so I ran it. He's like, it had a 60-pounder on there, and the tag on the jug was 2 months old. The fish was hooked for 2 months.
Yeah.
Around, now a lot of times you'll see the jugs up in the coves, hung up in timber, in sticks. That's because a fish has gone up in there who's caught a big fish, but most of the time it can swim off with a jug. Swims up in there to rub the jug off, gets hung up, and sometimes they probably are able to rip the thing out or work themselves loose, but a lot of times I believe they probably die.
Yeah, they do. And that hurts the fishery. It hurts it bad. And that's why I'm saying I think more guys are getting more educated on what that does. Like, it really hurts our fishery. And if we're trophy catfishing, and that's why I fish and that's why you fish, I'll take guys. If you want to catch some eater catfish, probably don't come fishing with me. Because that's not what I want to do. I tell people, like, there's a million guys on the lake to take you striper fishing. There's a million guys on the lake to take you to go fill your cooler up. I'm the guy. I want to take you out to catch a fish that you're going to take a picture of and throw it back in the water and put that picture on your desk and talk about it for the rest of your life.
That's how I
Yeah, I like big fish. And don't get me wrong, striper fishing, Lake Texoma has also gotten a lot better. They put a limit on 2 fish per person over 20 inches. And I guarantee you, I've been fishing there my entire life. And in the last 5-8 years, we're seeing more big striper in the 15 to 20 pound range again than we have in a long time.
That's
guys turning the big fish loose, yeah. Or they only can catch so many, and then so they have no choice but to turn them loose if they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's helping a lot.
Yeah, guys, take a more approach toward fishing. It's not just big catfish; it's getting bait. I mean, guys filling their coolers with big bait. It's not necessary, man. You have to try to think about the next guy that comes along behind you. But even further down the road to people like my son who are going to be fishing the next 25, 30, 40 years.
Right.
What's going to be left for them if guys are running 1,000 jugs in the inlet when all the best fish are coming through there this month?
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
They got to run the gauntlet to get through all that. Now, a lot of them are using chicken and And I know, guys, chicken catch big fish, but so
only if you put Kool-Aid on it.
Oh man. Jeff says, serious question here. How do you guys feel about commercial fishing?
I saw that.
Fishing with chicken and keeping all the giant fish.
Yeah.
Well, our shows often turn to that, and you can see it sparks a little bit of fire in our belly. Juan says, I love showing pictures of fish. People say my face lights up and they know I love what I do. Yes, no doubt, buddy. Nothing wrong with showing off pictures and being proud and getting other people excited, sharing your journey. You know, I tell guys, I love watching guys on Facebook share their journey for fishing. You know, I don't care to see 1,000 advertisements shared out.
Yeah.
That not so much, but I do like the fishing.
You know what I really loved? That about a week ago, you sent me a fishing challenge, like to put like 7 pictures of myself fishing, and I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm just going to post the pictures for 7 days, right? Well, that made me look back through all my pictures, and I found pictures of me fishing with my grandpa. That he taught me how to fish. My kids, you know, their first fish or biggest fish, and then fishing with my friend's son, like, you know, or fishing with my friend that who passed away. Like, I looked at his picture, I'm like, man, that's what's up right there, right? That's what it's about.
No doubt. I'm on my second 7-day challenge.
I saw that with Action Jackson. I saw that.
Nominated Jackson. So I've been going back, and now my phone only has probably, well, it's got probably 7.5 years of pictures on it because I've lost phones, and back then they didn't transfer to the new phone, but
right,
now they transfer. So I got 7.5 years. So I've gone through those last 2 challenges and looked at 7.5 years of fishing with my son.
Right.
Been crazy cool to see every trip we've gone. You know, I got, I don't know, 8,000 photos of fish. It's all fishing, you know.
Yeah.
Pretty much 90% of my pics on my phone are fishing trip pics. And so to go through there and see each trip and relive that, man, it was really cool.
He's got a couple for sure.
Yeah, he's caught a few. Yeah. It's cool to see his progression. So first fish he caught, he was 1.5 years, and he couldn't reel the thing in. But we were channel cat fishing, and he just we were at the dock at Tawakoni. He just raised it up and got the fish in without having a reel. And then I'd say about 2 years old, he started reeling in 1 to 2 pounders, and it was an epic battle, you know.
Yeah.
To me, seeing those old pictures is almost brings more joy than seeing those 60s, 70s, 80s he's caught.
Yeah, for sure. Those pictures that I looked up were great.
Yep, Bruce, I would agree. Those 2 giants caught on the boat last week were incredible. Won us $500 at Mad Cats. We're going to donate that to Operation Vets with Nets. So anybody that's not familiar, Operation Vets with Nets does real therapy. It's free fishing trips for active duty military and vet and retired military vets. 0 cost. If you know a vet that's in need of real therapy, operationvetsnets.org. You can go there. You can fill out a trip request, and we got captains all over the country. I'm on the board of directors. I'm also a captain. If you're in my area, give them a shout. We'll get a trip going. Trophy season.
I'm really glad you brought that up because I am also going to be a captain. I'm going to sign up to do those trips. I currently give out trips to my American Legion here in Van Alstyne, Texas. I also give one away to my church every 2 months, and at an auction we have once a year. So I try to do what I can, but I want, after seeing that trip with you and those guys and stuff, and I've been talking to myself and some of my veteran friends, and I'm like, hey, I got to get on this Operation Vets with Nets. That's why I fish. Like I said, it's not about the money. It's about sharing and teaching people how to fish and making memories for me. So,
There's
yeah, I'm going to be in that.
our Operation Vets, providing that real therapy. Woo! What's up, Rustic? Welcome in, buddy. How you doing, man? Yeah, Operation Vets with Nets is really blown up. I love being a part of that organization. I'm on a ton of teams, and that's a great team to be on. It's
Yeah, and you know another thing that I can bring to that is I'll do striper fishing during the summertime. So I'm year round. I could help out with that year round, and I can get 6 people on my boat pretty easily. So I'm really excited about it. I want to get in on that.
Yeah. Matt, for those that don't know Matt, he's got a guide service called Team M&M Fishing. He fishes out of Lake Texoma. It's one of the largest lakes in the country. It's got the largest population of striped bass in the world in a freshwater fishery. It's the only lake in the country where striped bass will reproduce naturally. It was the world record holder for blue catfish in 2004 till about 2007, I believe. 122 pounds and some change. It's a great fishery. Matt's a great friend of mine, an awesome angler, good dude. You'll never hear anything but good things about Matt. So
thanks, buddy. I appreciate that.
He's been really a good friend to me. Always willing to help me when I've had questions about that fishery before I come fish it. I always go and call my buddies before I go fish. I fish all over, but having somebody like Matt to bounce ideas off of, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then we were talking about your post earlier too. People were asking, or your post that said, how do you consistently catch big fish or get better at catching big fish? And I can tell you one of the main reasons, or one of the main things that we have in common is, be friendly with other anglers. Be friendly. We're here to fish. We love to fish, right? We're not here to complain and drama and all that. I don't do that. I love fishing. You ask me, I'm going to tell you straight up, like, this is where the fish are at. This is what I would do. And that's another way. Like, if I want to fish Louisville, hey, Chris, where are they at, man? Where should I go? Where should I start?
I'll tell you, and I'll tell that to pretty much anyone. As long as I know you're going to turn the fish loose, I'm willing to tell you exactly where I caught them. And if it's a lake that I didn't just fish, I got guide buddies, really top level anglers in every fishery pretty much at this point. And I will call them and get the real information for people that are friendly to me.
Right. So one of the keys to success catching big fish is be friendly with other anglers.
I agree.
Yeah, be good, man.
Rusty Campbell, I've been ramping him up lately. He's like, what do I need to do? I was like, build your contacts.
Yeah.
Build your contacts, because having high-level anglers and being able to bounce ideas off of where's the bait. If you don't have bait, where can you get bait? Maybe they were out the day before. Maybe they already have bait. Matt's given me bait before. I gone picked it up at his house before I hit the lake.
And I'll do it again.
And but in the same token, you got to pay that stuff forward to the next guy. I might not be able to pay Matt back, and it's but I can go pay another one of my friends back who's asking me for help. So that's basically how our fishing group works. I've got a huge network. Matt's probably friends with half, a lot of the guys that I network with, other guides, other really high level tournament guys that are in our state.
Yeah.
Just be friendly to those guys, and you do need to have something to offer. It's not going to be a one-sided deal. It needs to be beneficial for everyone. So get out there, put in the work, try to help others. It'll pay off big time.
Yeah, putting in the work's a big thing too. Like learn what not to do, like that took a while for me,
Yeah. If you can learn what not to do, you'll increase your success dramatically, because you're not burning up your days just doing the wrong crap and then beating yourself up about it. Once you iron that stuff out, the success happens, and then you get the confidence. Once you get the success and then the confidence, it's almost just like a science. You just know where to go.
I almost do it the same way consistently every time. I will make a leader shorter, a little bit longer here and there to see if that changes the bite, or put a little like different rattle on one to see if that will affect the bite. Maybe a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller piece of bait. I normally use really big baits because I don't want to catch a 10-pound fish. I don't want that fish.
I'm the same way. And I do hear a lot of guys that catch decent fish. They still go small, and they catch a lot of small ones. But I'm like you, man. I'm going for giants, and it works for me. We catch big fish. Jeff says, you dragging the same rigs in the wintertime, just shallow water right now, 10-0, 12-0 hooks. And I would say, if you're going up there, leave your 10-0s and 12-0s on. Shorten your leaders if you're up shallow. If you're running a 3.5 foot leader, I tend to do better with a foot leader, a 1.5 foot. My leaders, this is the only time of year I shorten everything up. And I may leave a couple long, because not all fish are just on the bottom feeding, but when they're up shallow, they are down there grubbing around in the mud, because a lot of these giants I catch are their slime coat is just covered in mud.
Yeah, the last month, almost every big fish I've caught looked like he was buried in the mud, like almost to a point where you wouldn't even see him on your fish finder, because he's just buried in there.
Yeah, a lot of big fish you don't see.
Yeah,
this time of year.
So shortening the leader is definitely good advice, but the big hooks for sure. If you're gonna catch a 70, 80-pound fish, you got to have that 10 or 12-aught hook that's going to go around that tooth patch, or you're going to be missing an opportunity.
Yeah, I'm going to show you the picture one more time, because somebody had gotten into it about smaller hooks, and I do realize you can catch any fish in the lake on a small hook if it's hooked properly in the corner of the mouth. But Matt, how many trips this year have the fish took the bait and hooked themselves in the corner of the mouth and ran? I'll say on the weekend trips this whole year. How many have done that?
I don't know.
Not many. This has been the craziest year for fishing. I've caught almost all of our fish either on top or the bottom of the tooth patch. They're not biting it and running. They're just It's been like and normally what I was told is that would be called a short bite, like when they have it in the bottom or the top, they come up and then they bite it and they back up. Yeah. So, right here is a good example. Look at the tooth patch on that. It's 3-4 fingers wide. You are not getting a little hook behind that tooth patch. All you're going to do is get it in the skin. And when that thing gets right up next to the boat, it has enough power to rip a hook if it's a skin hook. You got to get it around that giant tooth patch if it's not hooked properly. And this year, I would, if I didn't have big hooks, I'd have lost, I don't know how many of my best fish. So
me too, bud. And like a 6 or 8-aught hook probably isn't going to get around that right there.
No, No, and even hell, my 10s on these fish, even the 10 barely did it. Barely. I mean,
Yeah, hey, I don't know if you saw that post I made, but I just got a whole bunch of those Action Jackson 10-aught hooks. I love those hooks.
they've done me right. They got
I love a little bit offset. I love the fine wire, and it's got a big gap. Those are my go-to now for sure.
Yeah, I like them. We're going to refine it just a little bit. We're going to try to keep the same offset, the same super wide gap, the same gauge on the wire. We're going to try to change the point just a hair. We're going to kick that point up just a little bit more. I'd like to fine tune things. So I want that tip just slightly kicked up a little bit more. But man, the hooks have been hooking giant, all of our best fish come off that hook. So
yeah, I bought some of those little spinner rigs, the Spinner 2.0s, and there's like a little drop down, and I dropped down to the 10-aught Action Jackson hook on the spinner. You know that rig is killer, man. There's something special.
I don't know. I don't know what it is about that rig. So for guys that don't know, we got a new rig at Carolina Lakeway. It's called the Outlaw Spinner Rig, and it's just something we come up with just to try to find something that's a little bit different. It's got a couple little small spinner blades on it, and I got to test the thing. And Matt's been on my boat a couple times when we fished that damn rig.
Yeah.
And Jesse Campbell too. And all our best fish come off that spinner rig. And it's only on one rod. Only had the rig on 1 out of 10 rods.
Well, I got it on about 3 of mine right now. So, but yeah, we caught our biggest fish on it, and then you sent me a picture, and I saw it, and I was like, hey, I know that rig.
So that catch is too much of that offset hurts on those big cats. And I'll tell you, I've heard that. I've been fishing for big fish for 35 years. I've never had a deep hook on one. I've never had one swallow the hook like everybody says, oh, they'll swallow it and then you can't get it out. I've never had that. In 35 years, catching 250 big fish a year, year after year after year after year after year after year after year, I've never had that happen on a single fish. The only time I've had one deep is on a little fish where I had little baits and I was up shallow and I didn't even know he was on there. But when I'm dragging, I know every time there's a big fish on there, there is no way he's swallowing the hook. I've had one that got hooked in the tongue. The tongue's not that far back there. I've never even had to use big, long set of pliers to get a hook out of a fish. It just,
Chris, I think what he's saying is that you're going to miss the fish, because he made another comment that said the hook point should be pointed at the eye of the hook, in my opinion. I don't know if he means like we're going to miss the fish. I don't think obviously it's going to take a giant fish to swallow a 10-aught Action Jackson hook, but I don't know. I don't think you're missing fish because of it.
No. Here, I know exactly what the offset does. I've catch tons of big fish. And what the offset does is on days like we've had this year, where a fish grabs it. Okay, here's your bait. The bait's going by. Your fish just grabs it. And then you start dragging him and he doesn't turn. What the offset does is it's kicked a little bit and it just allows that thing, when you crank down and his mouth shut, it gives you an opportunity to catch a fish that you would have never caught without an offset hook. Now, what guys that say the offset is bad for is the saltwater guys say is when a big fish swallows that hook and you crank down on it, it hooks him in the gut inside the fish. Yeah. That's not the case with blue cat. That's not how they feed and bite. You would have to sit there and let him run and run and run. And I don't know any catfish angler that does that. And so.
Not on my boat. They ain't running on my boat.
Ain't running on my boat either.
Yeah, I crank them down, man.
And that's just the way I look at it. Yeah, losing some fish from time to time is part of it. It's going to generally happen for me on either on a west front day when they're laid down in the mud and they're biting weird, or on a high barometric pressure day where it's like no wind. They're laying down in the mud. They're feeling very lethargic. They just kind of clamp on it as you go by. Those are days.
Yeah.
Or if they're doing an injury bite where they just come up and bite the crap out of the bait and don't put the hook in the mouth. That's fishing, though. It doesn't matter what hook you have. On a day like that, you're going to miss a few fish. So I've used every hook in the book.
Yeah.
There are some that I don't like, but I can tell you right now, I could pick 15 different hooks that would all fish pretty much the same.
Yeah, I know we've talked about it when we're out on the lake fishing, and we even take out different hooks and compare the gap and the offset and the fine wire and the thick wire. And I used to use Team Catfish double action 10-aught circle hooks. That was my go-to hook, but it was a good hook. I caught a lot of fish on it, but I catch more fish now that I'm using a finer wire hook.
Yeah. Here's what the finer wire does. If you look at the thing, because this is the type of angler I am. I like to hook my shit and look at it, right? I want to see what it looks like in the water. So I'll hook mine with a heavy hook. And when I hook it with the heavy hook, here's the hook, right? Okay, here's the hook. Here's the bait. When you got a heavy hook, it's like this. Just
right.
Heavy. That thing drags your bait down, and then your bait's riding weird. It's like riding like this. When you got a thin wire and you got a big bait, that bait's more buoyant, and it's riding more like a fish that's injured.
Right.
So also on a weird bite day, you got a super heavy gauged hook. You cannot bury that thing if you got a long line and you're dragging. Now, if you're in the river and you got braid and you got zero stretch, you can get a bigger, heavier gauge hook to bury. But we drag and we got long lines. And I think that right there is one of the reasons the thinner gauge is also beneficial, so you can bury that thing.
Yeah, especially when I'm in 70, 80 foot of water on my farthest planer board out. I don't know. I probably have almost 200 yards of line out.
So I heard the finer wires like to bend, and I've only bent one hook. I've bent a hook on a stump. That ain't a fish.
Yeah.
I've hooked a stump and bent one, but never on a fish. I did get it. I hooked into an 80-pounder on my home lake, which would have just blown the record out of the water. Got it all the way to the boat, and it broke the hook. The only time I've ever broke a hook, but it was in the summer. I was fishing for eaters. I didn't realize I would, in my lake, you don't catch big fish in the summer. I wasn't ready for it. It was a small gauged hook, thin, I'd say it's a medium wire. It just was not a trophy class hook. And I broke that thing. So, but I've been running the thinner wire now for probably 5 years. We catch on some days 900 pounds of trophy catfish. The hooks never let me down.
No, I don't break a lot of hooks either. I may have bent one or two getting it out of a big fish, like if it's hooked in it funny or real deep with a pair of pliers trying to pull it out. But I've never pulled in a line and had my hook just broken off. No, this has never happened to me, actually.
I would say if you're a river guy or if you're fishing heavy structure on anchor, I would probably use a heavier hook. I don't think it's as important as when you're dragging for presentation wise. When you're in current, that thing's getting pulled back. When you're going 0.3, 0.4 in the lake, you need that thing to be dancing by in a natural presentation. So, there's a big difference in lake fishing and river fishing, and that's probably one of the biggest differences right there is presenting the baits. You do need a thinner wire in a lake. In my opinion, my big fish production has dramatically increased with the smaller gauged hook.
and talk about like presenting baits. Something I'm excited about for Team M&M is I was going to have it done this week, but my boat's been in the shop, by the way, and it's going to get fixed. It'll be done by the middle of next week, thank goodness, because I'm ready to go fishing. But I'm going to put live scope on my boat, and I want to target giant flatheads on deep trees in the middle of Lake Texoma with giant bluegills and giant gizzard shads, dropping them down live. I'm going to spot lock over the top of them. I'm going to drop them down live on these structures real deep. And Texoma, it's not known for big flatheads. But let me tell you, when I was a kid with my grandfather, we would catch giant flatties, and they're in there, but not a lot of people fish for them. Not a lot of guys. You won't even see them on jugs because these guys are not putting on live bluegill. They're putting on chicken livers or whatever have you. But you get live bluegills and giant gizzard shads and dropping down on Texoma some structures. There's giants in there, and I'm going to pull them up.
Rich said, that's for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of times, if you hang a stick fish, it's time to cut the hook off because a lot of these hooks these days have a super fine point, which you got to keep an eye on on a fine point hook. I like a fine point hook, but you definitely got to keep an eye on one, especially like, the day me and you fished together last time, Matt, on Levant. I mean, we caught just fish after fish after fish after fish. And by the end of the day, I'm like, I checked about 3 or 4 of our hooks. I'm like, man, these hooks need to come off. It's time to put new hooks on. We've smoked these things. When you catch that many big fish in a single day, you got to keep an eye on your hooks. Or when that big one does come, you may miss him.
I keep bags of hooks in my boat. I have a ton of them. Like I just bought 15 more. I already had 15, but I want to know I have them. But I can tell you, especially this time of year, when I know I can catch 60, 70, 80-pound fish, and that's opportunity. The one thing I do before I put out any baits is, number one, I check my main line for any nicks. I try to. I check my leader for any nicks. I make sure that those.
I've lost more big fish from the nick and the leader than any other thing. That's the number one thing. If you're going to lose a big fish, it's generally because you've got a flaw in your leader line, or maybe even up on your main line. But it's slinging baits. For me, it's from slinging baits, and as that thing's going out, it hits your line and just barely nicks it. So when you're out trophy fishing, it's good to run your hand up that line, check the leader, check your hook point. Anytime you bring it in,
especially
every time I bring one in, I do.
Especially us guys that, we have 10 rods set up. Like we have them set up, we put them in rod holders, we drive across the lake. Well, you drive across the lake and, 20-mile-an-hour winds and 5-foot waves on Texoma all the time. They rub on each other. Baits come off. They spin around. Things nick.
I used to Waukene years ago. I mean, it's been probably 4 years since I used to really go down there a lot. But when it was a world-class lake, I'd go down there 6-7 times in the winter. And I learned the hard way. When you leave your rods up there in the rod holder, this shit right here for an hour and a half on your way to the lake.
Yeah.
Tough. So when you put a 75-pound fish on the line, you will lose it every single time. So I started taking mine out, sticking them in the bottom of the boat.
Right.
Bringing them out when it's time to go catch fish, because I lost some of my best fish.
I mean, one time I went fishing and I rubbed my hand up and down the line, and almost every pull, I was like, holy crap, I got to cut off 5 feet and retie every one of these. I'm so glad I ran my hand up the line. I would have broke off every one of them,
Yeah. That chicken liver is 14 years old. I used to use chicken liver when I was, 8, 10, 12. But when I turned 12, we started using live bait, bluegill, shad. We fished a lot down at the floodgates. We'd throw the cast net for shad. And I never, after that, I never looked back. I've used fresh cut bait or live bait ever since, every week. So,
Yeah. Jeff Martin said he'd like to go catch some big flatties with me, so come on, man. And then Fat Cat said he caught some good flatties by Fog Bottom dragging, but like I've caught 2 flatheads in the last year dragging. I don't catch a lot dragging because I'm all using, cut bait. I wonder if you are using live bait and dragging, which I actually talked to Jamie Dunn, the owner of Carolina Lake Weights, and he told me that he drug a couple live perch across I don't know, I can't think of Santee Cooper Lake, and was catching some big fish on live bluegill, dragging them.
Yeah. If I've caught, I used to catch more of them when I used bluegill a lot. I used to get bluegill out of my neighbor's pond the day before I'd fish. I used bluegill a lot, and the majority of the ones that I ever caught was right around the dam, around the rocks. If I was next to the boulder field, because there's a couple of boulder fields on my home lake, I drag certain times a year. I catch them around the boulder fields, or if I'm up around the creek mouth inlet. If I'm around the inlet, I would catch one then, and it would be very infrequent when I would catch one. It was nuts, and there's quite a few flatheads in my lake. At one point, it was the world record holding lake. It is not anywhere near what it used to be, but.
Well, you can see now that noodling is legal in Texas. You can see how big the potential is for these flatheads. Guys weren't catching 89-pound flatheads out of even Tawakoni the last couple of years. Louisville, Lavon, Texoma. Now you're seeing these guys holding up these giant fish that they're noodling, and luckily they're putting most of those back in, which is cool. I want you to put that fish back in the water, please. So that means he's out there to catch on rod and reel too.
Yeah, and that's not stuff. So guys that don't understand what the difference is, a needlepoint hook is pretty much only good when it's new, and when you resharpen it, you're basically sharpening the needlepoint off and just making it a sharp hook. I do it. I still sharpen my needle, when I do have needlepoint hooks, I will sharpen them. It's no longer a needlepoint hook. Needlepoint hook has got just a very, very thin, tiny, and when you hook into a really big fish into the tooth patch, a lot of times when you bring that thing back, the needle point's messed up, and you got to file that needle point off and just make it a sharp point. And so forever I would just cut them off and put a new hook on. But now, after learning from a couple of my other guide buddies, I bring a file, and after every big fish, I look at my hook. If the needle point's bent or if the tips is fouled a little bit, I'll just run that file up and down each side about 3 times, and it's fixed.
I wish I could say I did that every time.
That's my boy Alexander Doty.
Sometimes I get too excited or overwhelmed with taking pictures and everything else. I'll throw it back out there without doing anything just because.
Another one. Man. Lucky you bring the fish in and it like falls off the hook, and you're like, well, that's weird. And then you check it and you're like, look at the hook point. How'd we even catch that?
Yeah.
That's fishing, though. Sometimes when you're slinging that thing, your hook will spin around and hit your weight. It'll hit your rattle. You could run it into a stump while it's underwater. A lot of variables. Texoma doesn't have a lot of stumps, but it's got a lot of if you're fishing the ledges, it's got a ton of giant boulders, and those things can be hard on hooks. If you get hung up and you try to rip that thing through and it hooks on those rocks and stuff, it'll mess up your hooks.
That's one thing I do love about Texoma. I can pretty much drag Carolina Lake Weights through the entire lake anywhere I want, and I maybe 1 out of 10 or 15 trips lose one, maybe. So
I'm the same way. If I lose them, it's going to be in a certain area. It's like
Yeah.
Man, look, and you look over at the shoreline, and it's got like 8-foot boulders. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. I'm over here in this damn boulder field. There ain't nothing getting through if you lodge one underneath a boulder.
What big fish are in there?
I know. That's where I hung that super giant two trips ago. It's like lost it.
Yeah.
Evan Warden, what's up, buddy? Welcome in, man. That's our boy Tub and Tackle. Welcome in, Don. Gas Money. Got him a PB on an Operation Vets with Nets trip and his father-in-law. I hope Butch is doing better, man. I know Butch went into the hospital, a little health scare. I didn't get the update, but I hope he's doing better.
Somebody said ain't no sure thing. He said ain't no sure thing is dragging on the Mississippi River. And so I fished the Mississippi River, as you know, this year in a tournament with Twisted Cat Outdoors with my buddy Monty Bond. He's a great fisherman. He fishes all the Twisted Cat Outdoors tournaments. He's actually, I think he's in first or second place right now overall the tournaments. He's a good fisherman, and we fished the Mississippi River. That was my first time ever to do it. I've been wanting to do it. It was cool. What did we catch? I think I caught one fish. We caught one fish in 2 days. We pre-fished one day, and then we fished one day, and I caught a 27-pound fish. It was the only one on the boat. We fished hard. Another guy in the tournament caught a 103-pound fish.
Oh,
yeah, hard to beat that, right? So, but man, I've always wanted to fish there. I totally underestimated that river. That current was strong. It was like no other fishing I ever done before. We had to readjust everything that I know about fishing was pretty much obsolete from Texoma besides big baits. You know? Yeah, three-way swivels. We got to have these awesome swivels that don't get spun up. They got to be ball bearing swivels or else it's not good enough, you know? And it was pretty cool though. Like it was an amazing experience. We also fished the Missouri River. And then seeing the Asian carp jump out of the water in the boat was a crazy experience up there.
So, Joe, would either one of you guys have just as much confidence fishing from the bank, or are those days way in the past? If I'm fishing from the bank, it's going to be for alligator gar. I would rather fish from a boat for alligator gar because I like to see what I'm fishing, and if I had a graph and I could go into the water and look to find them, I would eliminate the bad water. If I'm going catfishing, I'm going by boat. I got a boat. I've spent a lot on graphs. I've spent a lot of time honing my craft. Could I go by bank and fish? Yes. Certain times of the year, I could probably do just as good by bank if I went in the spring. Right now, you know, bank fishing, a guy on the bank could do just as well or better than a guy in a boat. If it's today.
Yeah, I have seen some really good fish from the bank this year, especially when the catfish are running up the river, especially when all this rain. These guys are catching 40, 50, 60s from the bank a lot, like almost every other day. And I started fishing from the bank. I mean, I didn't always have a boat. So, yeah, and I miss it. Some days I do miss it. Some days I don't want to hook up the boat. Sometimes I want to put it in the water. Sometimes I want to put it back on the trailer. Sometimes I want to put $75 worth of gas in the boat. You know, some days I miss the days like, hey, wife, jump in the truck. Let's grab a cooler, go down by the lake and throw a couple poles out and we catch a fish, you know?
That's how I got started. When I was a kid, we fished floodgates, and we had a ton of success. That's what got me started, was fishing the river for big flatheads and blues. At floodgates, we'd drive all over and go. And my lake at the time was one of the best lakes in the country. It was very well known lake. Now it's nowhere near what it was then. But back then it was a great lake to grow up on. And we did a lot of fishing on the river by bank and had a lot of success at it. But if I'm going today, I'm not going to go catfishing on the bank when I got a boat, because by boat I can go where the fish are. And if it's winter, you the way I fish, you ain't getting to the fish by the bank. Now, I do know guys that do well in the winter by the bank, but that's not the way I fish in the winter. And even in the fall, I'm starting to go deep after the lake turns over. It's just, could I do it? I could go back and do it. Would I have as much success at it, Joe? No freaking way, man.
Yeah, and something to be said about that. So another thing about bank fishing. So on Lake Texoma in particular, there's a section of the lake called Hagerman. And in Hagerman, you cannot take a boat up there during hunting season. It is illegal. And so another thing, the world record, it was a world record, blue catfish, 121 pounds, caught by Cody Molinex. His name was Splash, is what they named the fish, was caught off the bank in 3 foot of water. And the guy that stood next to him, I know Cody personally, and I know the guy was standing next to him. The guy next to him caught a 96 pounder at the same time. They caught 2 fish at the same time on shad during the shad kill. So during the shad kill, there is an advantage of fishing to the bank when you need to be in 2 foot of water. You know, so there are times where bank fishing can be really, really good. So I just want to throw it out there that, you know, not only it is still the Texas state record, 121 pounds was caught from the bank.
Yeah.
So, and that's the only way he could have caught that fish, because you couldn't have a boat up there.
Yeah. I believe, though, there's fish that are that big or bigger in that lake still. That's why I go up there, Matt. I'm hoping I can get one. I'll tell you, February, when I fished with Jesse Campbell up there, we marked 2 fish that were something special. Now, how big they were, I have no idea. They were something that I'm not used to seeing. They were over 100-pound fish.
Yeah.
We saw 2 of them.
This is why I get out of bed every morning.
We catch one of these, boy, we're going to be famous.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was that size fish, but they didn't bite, you know, I mean, and that's one of the only lakes where I see fish that are something special that I'm not used to seeing. I've only seen 1 fish like that on my lake with my graph in the last in the last 12 years since I've been running side image.
Yeah.
I've only seen 1 fish that's been like, holy crap, look at that thing.
I tell people all the time when they're like, hey, Matt, is fishing good at Lake Texoma? And I say, hey, look, if you could tell me I could fish any lake in Texas, any lake, almost the United States, I would go to Lake Texoma, because I wake up in the morning trying to catch a 100-pound fish. And it's going to happen there. If I couldn't fish here, I'd be in the Mississippi or Missouri River.
Yeah.
So that's it. I think they're in there too.
Yeah, you can catch one off the bank. I guarantee you can catch one off the bank. Where the fish that I saw were real close to the bank. Just the difference between being a bank angler and the guy in the boat is we can go where the fish are, and if you're on the bank, you got to go there and hope the fish are there.
Right.
You don't know if they're there or not. The major difference for a guy that's in a boat is we can eliminate the dead water with our graph. And, you know, it's that graph is what makes us not have to have so much heartache with the bad days. You can go, just because you got a graph isn't going to make you a great fisherman, but once you know how to use the graph, you can at least eliminate the dead water, and you can say, okay, they're not here. Let me go look over here. If you're able to put it all together, eventually, after a million heartaches and tears and a lot of blood and about, I don't know, $200,000 or $300,000 burnt, over a 25-year span, you start like understanding, hey, I'm starting to figure these things out.
And that's it goes back to your post. Like, what does it take to catch giant catfish consistently? It takes time on the water. Like Lake Texoma, I got like 4 or 5 spots in that lake that I love. Now, have I caught big fish other places? Yes. But the reason I know about those spots is number one, because I'm on the lake all the time. Number two, I'm friendly with other fishermen. They've shared some spots with me that I don't share with a lot of people unless I trust that person, let the fish go, and that's what it takes, and finding the bait and going around, like you said, and spitting that gas, and then like looking at your graph and be like, okay, is this fish or is this are these big giant buffalo carp? Like what am I looking at? And it takes time to figure out this and that. And then once you do, like almost instantly, okay, I need to fish here. Okay, maybe I should fish somewhere else,
That cat, I fished the mark bait on the big river. I chased the mark. And when I'm on the lake, there's bait everywhere. I mean, there's literally bait everywhere. When guys say, I fished the bait, go fish the bait, and fish, find the bait, find the fish, that ain't freaking true. That's about the furthest thing from truth that I've ever heard about our Texas fisheries. You can't go 50 feet without seeing a bait ball.
Yeah.
In a lot of our fisheries, it's just chock full of bait. And you might find 3 or 4 good groups of fish with no big fish in them. You see the group and you're like, oh, look at these fish. And I'm like, the guy's like, oh, should we fish it? Should we fish it? I'm like, no, there's not any good fish here. We're not fishing this. You have to be on the right group of fish. Not every group of fish has big fish in it. And not every group of bait has fish on it. Now, if you find a giant group of bait and there's no fish there, they might find that pile of bait the next day. So maybe if you're fishing the next day, you can go find that same pile of bait and there may be fish there. It's just, understanding what you're reading on the graph, I would say probably helps eliminate so much of the heartache of trophy catfishing.
Not just trophy catfishing.
Okay, I'm in this group. There's a bunch of 30s. I'm seeing 40s, and I'm even seeing some giants. I'm fishing it. If I see that, I'm fishing it. And sometimes I really need to see those giant fish if I see all the other things that I like. Like if I see a bunch of gator gar feeding on baby carp, I'm like, okay, I know there's going to be some absolute giant catfish in here. Not going to be any eaters. Eaters are scared of this, what's going on here. They're like leaving. But a giant catfish doesn't care. He's like, oh, baby carp, injured. I'm eating these. Ain't no gar going to feed on a 70-pound, 80-pound catfish. But I know I ain't catching a single eater up there amongst all them gar, but I might just catch me 100-pounder. And
you caught 280s.
I fish it. Got 280s out of those gar.
And I know you were marking giant alligator gar, needle nose gar, carp.
I'm like, man, I'm up here amongst the gar.
Yeah.
Like, I know there's some giants up in there.
And so many people will tell you, oh, if there's gar, there's no catfish there. And I've heard that, and I believe that sometimes too. But in the last few years, fishing that shallow water and seeing gar on my side image, I mean, there's no doubt they're gar. And then hooking into a giant fish, you're like, okay, they are in here with them.
Hey,
they're not scared of that gar.
Here's what I realized when I was fishing up there. I would see an absolute giant blue catfish bust through the surface, chasing bait while I'm in these gator gar. And I'm like, damn it, look at that. This is like National Geographic. I'm like, that is a giant catfish. And I look at it on my side image because it shows up on your side image over there. And it's just, I mean, it's a monster. It's like 5 foot long. You're like, holy crap. And so I know that you're not going to catch a lot of fish under 40 pounds when you're fishing around those big gator gar.
Yeah.
Your opportunity to catch some of your best fish are fishing around those big gar because they follow them around. Those gar are not very they're not very good. They feed hard, but they're not very they injure a lot of fish. They don't have a high success rate when they attack. So the injured fish, a giant catfish, like, oh, look at that injured baby carp. And There's a ton of they're feeding on baby carp. When you get up there, you can see those marks on side image. They're just bright everywhere. You're like, man, look at all these. Some guys are like, them are eaters. I'm like, not with all these big gar around. They ain't.
Yeah. And another thing is, an 80-pound catfish or even 50, 60-pound catfish, they're not scared of an 6 foot, 7 foot alligator gar. That gar is not trying to eat that fish. Whereas you got a 5, 10-pound catfish up there, that gar might eat that fish.
My buddy Jesse's like, what are we looking at here, Chris? I'm like, we're looking at a group of about 20 alligator gar, and you see them feeding, right? I was like, see this mark that's over here about 20 yards behind them? That's a giant blue catfish. And he's on the outskirts waiting for something to get injured so that he can go in there and eat it.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys move away from the garbite. That ain't me, man. I freaking go up in it, and I ain't looking for a bunch of fish out of there, but I am looking for some of my best fish to come out of those groups. So
you are making me want to go fishing right now.
What? Today, when I talk to you on the phone, I'm envisioning in my mind, 7 foot marks on my graph.
I love it.
Giant triangle marks following. I'm like,
let's go. So what are you doing tomorrow, Chris?
I'm like, I know that muddy water's coming in up there. I know those freaking gator gar are up in there feeding on those fish coming through. Giants are up in there.
I'll see you at my house at 7 a.m. tomorrow then, right?
Oh, man, I thought about taking off today, but I never called anybody to get me bait. So.
Yeah. Hey, another thing back on the fish are falling the bait. It's sometimes that is true and sometimes it's not. Chris actually had a show a month or so ago about the mass of fish, right? So when that happens, that is a good time to find that huge mass of bait and other fish and fish right under it, just like we did in Lavon and caught 650 pounds of catfish in one day right under that mass of bait. But it's not all the time.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's sure. There's several times a year that I fish that pattern. One is in the winter. After big fronts, it groups everything up. Another time is pre-spawn when they go into these, what I call like home zones or holding areas. It's before a rain comes. So they'll sit out in a little bit of deeper water, not right up by where the water's coming in, but they move out and they sit in these holding areas, and you can see stuff really piled up thick, waiting for that. They know a rain's about to come.
Yeah.
When that rain comes, they run right up into that muddy water, high oxygen, and they feed. So those are the times that I'm looking for that super thick. I call it the biomass, where it's just, you don't even know what you're looking at. Everything's there. Every fish. You can catch largemouth bass, crappie, gar, giant blue cats, giant gizzard shad. Everything in the lake is together.
And you'll know when you find it because you'll be in 50 foot of water and your depth finder will tell you you're in 30 foot of water. That's how thick it is.
Yeah. So the shad spawning pattern, that's what's about to happen. That generally happens right around 70 degrees, which we're coming up on that. And even in the backwaters on a sunny day, you might find some shad spawning. And it doesn't all happen at the same time. The shad spawn will generally start on our lakes. It's going to be the north end where the water is really shallow. In the backwater, it starts first. And then as the water warms up and we hit that 70 degree, it moves down the lake. Generally, you follow the birds for the shad spawn. You see where the birds are working, sitting on the shoreline, picking shad out of the shallow water, and you go fish up in a foot of water, and you can hammer them. It's a ton of eaters. But you can catch some giants that way for sure. I've caught some big fish fishing the shad spawn.
Yeah, Texoma, they're starting to spawn now, and it's just going to be I mean, there's going to be shad all over the banks pretty soon.
Yeah, I'm already there on my lake. My lake warms up a little faster than yours. I just this time of year, I'm up at your lake.
Yeah,
every week. I mean,
I know why.
Because my son had 2 games, and he's got games every Saturday and Sunday this month. So that's totally screwed me. That's why I was thinking maybe I'll take off and shoot up there Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, it's that time of year. My stepson's got baseball on Saturday. My son's got football on Sunday, so it's hard for me too.
And we try to help guys. We try to have a good mixture of lake and river guys come on the show. One thing that I like, it's a feather in my cap, is guys are like, Chris, you give up the secrets, and your guests give up the secrets. When you come on the show, when you got guys come on the show, they tend to open up and tell the real deal. I love that. I think for so long it was hard to get the real information that you needed to be really to take it to the next level. So
yeah, I wish this show was around when I was 18 years old.
Yeah, it would help. When I was a kid, there wasn't anybody helping anybody. It was hide your rigs and don't be telling anything.
Or be at the dock when they came in and hope they were cool enough to give you a hint that they caught all those fish over in that direction, or actually told you what bait they were using instead of guys. I know guys will point guys in the other direction. I'm like, man, there's Lake Texoma has plenty of fish in it for everyone. And like I said, it's only getting better. I've seen the lake getting healthier and healthier. It's amazing fishery,
Yeah. Built that well. It's man-made, but man, there's something magical about that lake.
Yeah.
All you got to do is go up there and see the amount of birds working. In any section of the lake, you can see 5 different groups of stripers on top of the water. It's crazy.
Yeah.
How many in every section is like its own lake.
It really is.
Enormous that lake is. And there isn't just one section of the lake that's going to hold fish. Like most of our fisheries, you got to be in the right section to even do well. On that lake, you can break down each section and do well.
Right. There, you got to be in a section within the section.
So spawn for any fish should be judged at the depth the spawn's at. And well, shad, for the most part, threadfin spawn first and gizzard shad are very quickly after, but they spawn shallow. They spawn up in grass, up in rocks, up in little sandy shorelines. They just lay their eggs up in about 6 inches up to about 2 feet of water, and the fish just boil. They are literally boiling, and I've seen 50-pound catfish beach themselves chasing shad up onto the shore and have to wiggle themselves back down. It's really cool. The shad spawn is fun to fish because it's like watching a National Geographic.
And I hate to keep bringing up Texoma, but I mean, it's a great lake, but it's really easy to tell when the shad spawn there. You get there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and the topwater bite for striper, they'll go from 10 foot up to 2 foot, and you can literally see the striper running across the sand. It's amazing.
Yeah, there's something magical about that lake, and it's very striper oriented. Fishing for catfish is completely different on that lake than anywhere else I've fished. It's crazy.
It can be tough. It can be very tough.
It is very tough. Luckily, I got good buddies that have helped me, and one of the best anglers in the country's helped me a lot, Daniel Armstrong. I like to give Daniel a shout out as well. He's been a great friend to me, very helpful. I know he's been good friend to you and very helpful to you.
Very, very good guy. I'll tell anybody every day he's the best fisherman on Lake Texoma. He knows I wish I knew all his spots. I don't, but he knows some stuff because he puts in the time. He's on the lake 7 days a week. Dude fishes his butt off, and he knows what he's doing. And he's a grateful, nice guy. If you're nice to Daniel, he's nice to you. He's helped me out ever since I started guiding. He's just a good dude, so I appreciate him as well.
Well, I've baits on the boat a few times, a time or two. I know what that means. Hey, it's all good up at Texoma. Killer B, I saw him up there fishing his kayak a couple trips ago. Got his rod back. He spilled over, hitting into a jug, ran into somebody's hung up jug, damn near killed him. Guys, keep an eye on your jugs or don't use them because guys like me are going to be pushing to outlaw them if you can't keep an eye on them. JTC, need to get you on the show soon, buddy. Let's see. Let me catch up with chat.
Yeah, you're good, bud.
Killer B, my boy's in the house. What's up? Killer B does not have a Facebook page. He's archaic freaking police officer. Need to get with the program, buddy.
And my buddy Brian Philhauer watched the show. I appreciate that support.
I didn't see him. Where's he at?
He was at the very, very beginning.
Okay. That cat says, I usually catch fish with bait in the water.
It helps.
That's a message he got from someone that's 70 years old. Yep, bait in the water is definitely the key to catching fish. And that's actually a piece of advice Daniel told me. Don't waste your time running all over the lake. If you're marking fish on this lake, fish them. Don't be running around all over trying to find the next group because you'll burn up your whole day on that giant-ass lake looking for fish. It's not like the rest of our fisheries where you can give up on a group and go fish I'm going to go find another group. If you're going to go find another group in that lake, you might even have to head to another section. If you're in that section, fish that section, work it, and try to catch them.
Yeah, I've made that mistake.
I've done that. It's helped me. So,
yeah.
And Matt's helped me considerably last couple of years as well up there. So,
anytime any fisherman that's on here that's seeing this or listening to this, you need something, hit me up on Facebook message or whatever. Just message me, and you're looking where the bait is or where you might think the fish are. I'll tell you.
Yeah, that's an open book. Richard Green says gar liver is great catfish bait. I wouldn't know. I don't chop gar open.
I was about to say it probably is, but I'm not cutting the gar open.
They're hard to catch on a rod and reel if you're not targeting them.
I have seen one guy split one with a machete down the back like a lobster, and he had pulled out what looked like back straps out of his gar. That was probably 10, 15 pounds, and he said it was wonderful. And I was like, I bet it looked good. It looked like lobster meat coming out of there.
I've heard guys cube them up.
Yeah.
No thanks.
I haven't tried it, but I mean, if you cooked it and put it in front of me, I'll take a bite of it.
I'd probably try it, but I don't know, man. They're like a damn dinosaur. I mean, it's weird.
They are weird.
Scaly. I don't know. But hey, gators are good. I've had gator. It's pretty damn good.
I'll tell you what's weird is standing in the water with the 110-pound alligator gar in your arms, thinking I'm about to let this dude go or I'm in the water with him.
Yeah, that's one of the only things that scares my son is gator gar in the water.
I don't blame him. They're ugly.
Crazy big. Fat Cat says, I'm headed to Wheeler Dam now, and I'm not chasing gar liver. Are you using chicken?
That's one place I wouldn't mind fishing either, Lake Wheeler.
Bill, I got some footage of the double 80s. I'll release that. That was the day I did. The fishing was so slow. It's hard to shoot video on a day like that. So I don't know how good the video is going to be. I do have the footage of catching the fish. I got the footage of holding the fish and releasing the fish. I don't have anything else to really make it a good video.
Am I the only one here that hates it when Chris says, yeah, it was a slow day. We caught an 85 and an 84 and a couple other. It was so slow out there.
Dude, we got three fish, man. I tell you, we got lucky, man.
Yeah.
You know, that's all I can tell you is we got lucky.
I know what you mean, buddy. Like the other day, I waited 8 hours for that one bite. Sometimes patience is also key, you know?
Yeah, I know if you're fishing for really big fish, and you know that's where they are, there ain't very many of them.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to spend some time not catching anything to hook into one that's like that. They generally don't hang out with the pack. In my circumstance, every big fish I've ever caught that's over 70, none of them have been with the pack. They're off by themselves. It's
right.
They dance to a different beat. They march to a different drum. They're just different, man.
I agree with you, and I've also seen a seminar that Epic Catfish put on at the Catfish Conference, talking about the same thing. He goes, I hardly ever catch, 100-pound fish around 40, 50-pound fish. They're not where those fish are most of the time, and he's caught, I don't know how many, over 100, but he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, it's like 17, 100.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah, there's all different kinds of fishing, and it's for some guys, success is just catching fish, and for other guys, success is just catching one decent fish. And then for me, this time of year, I'm willing to just get my ass kicked to catch something supersized. So that's why I go up there hoping to get something big. And if we don't, I'm fine with it. I mean, the only way you're going to get one is if you go amongst them and you get up in where they're at. And that's the way I look at it. That's why I'm up there. I'm willing to take a whoop. I mean, Lord knows I've taken enough of them, man.
Look, if you want to go Friday, I'll have bait.
All right. Let me look at the wind.
All right.
I got the War Machine up there Friday.
All right. If you go, I'll go.
All right. If you can get us bait, let's do Friday.
All right. I'll call you tomorrow. You know it.
Yeah, buddy. I'm just fired up now. I won't be able to sleep tonight.
I know. And Operation Veteran Net said something to me earlier about going to their website and filling out the form to be a captain for their boats. And I want you guys to know I will do that by tomorrow. I'll get that done.
Josh Davis said he's with my teammate Saturday with Patriot Catfishing. Gonna try and put our vet on a tank. Let me tell you, if you got a lad in the boat, you got about as good a chance as anybody in the country to put a tank in the boat. That my boy right there, he is a fish catching fool. Those boys are some flathead catching sons of guns. Now, y'all are going to Wheeler, so that may be a little different. But hell, I mean, they catch good blue cats too, man. So you're in good company right there. That's one of my favorite teammates. We're teammates at Mad Cats. We're teammates at Carolina Lake Weights. Good boys right there. Great to have somebody on your boat like that. I guarantee you're pretty much setting yourself up for victory.
Lake Wheeler is a good spot to do it at.
Fat Cat, if your kids left the freezer open and destroyed your bait, well, there's the first thing. I don't use frozen bait. Would you be worried about gar liver? I might be worried about gar liver, but hell, I've caught them off. My buddy, one of my buddies brought hog backstrap one time, and I'm like, you put that shit on your side of the boat. And we caught it like a 17-pounder off a freaking hog backstrap that he'd shot 2 days before.
But it wasn't frozen, and that's another thing about that post you made. I don't use frozen bait either. It'd be my last resort. I almost rather put a chicken breast on there than some frozen shad.
I know some guys back here that use frozen skipjack and do well, but that's not here.
Yeah.
I've tried skipjack and they didn't work for me here. I've had a buddy that said, "Oh yeah, I fish skipjack," and I'm like, "Oh really? I'm coming, and you're fishing tomorrow, right?" He's like, yeah, I'm fishing tomorrow. I was like, well, I'm coming to your lake.
There's one bait I want to try.
We'll see which bait works better.
Yeah.
Let me just tell you, I smoked him like 5-1
on the shad
off my fresh bait.
Yeah, and there's another bait I want to try that I haven't ever tried, and that's eel.
Hey, my buddy Jamie Dunn, he uses eel a lot. Now, I know it's popular back east, but he's like, I can mail these to you, and they'll still be alive when you get them.
That's what I need. I need some live eel. You can
they're native to our water. They're just endangered.
They're native to Texoma. They still catch them in that overspill where the overspill lake.
Last year saying, what is this thing?
Yeah, I want to try it. I've heard amazing things about it, and I'm like, okay, let's throw a couple out and see what happens.
After you chop it up.
Yeah. I heard you can keep them on ice for like 7 days, and they're still good like 7 days later.
Yeah.
Not frozen, but just on ice.
Send me some, and I'll chop them up and put them on. So.
Well, let's do it.
I might need to put a whole one on with triple stinger rig, the way I like to fish.
We're going to use your cooler because I don't think I want all that in my cooler.
Oh, man, I need to probably check my cooler because I don't know if I got my bait out of there.
Oh, dude. That's the worst.
Oh, man. Fat Cat says big fish itch is like foot fungus. Let it come naturally.
True story.
And I didn't get to fish last weekend, so it's eating me up. Like, I don't generally go more than 2 weeks without fishing. If I didn't fish, it's because some big weather system. And my son having these sports games, it's like, I don't know what I signed up for.
Dad.
Red horse suckers are his favorite live bait, and I've heard a lot of guys say they love those.
I don't get a lot of those here. Do you get those?
No, I've only caught a few. Really.
I don't get. I would use them if I can find them. I can't.
You know, when I was a kid, we caught a lot more sucker fish. I believe sucker fish have to have a cleaner environment to reproduce, and most are beyond clean. They've become toxified. So,
right.
We caught sucker. I threw the net since I was probably, I don't know, 7 years old. I threw a cast net or the seining net since I was about 7 years old. And we would catch darters. It's like a darter fish. It's about that long. It's got tiger stripes on it. We would catch a lot of darters, which you don't hardly catch at all anymore. We would catch ghost minnows, which I haven't seen a ghost minnow in probably 15 years on my lake. I don't know if they're still up at Texoma. It's a little cleaner fishery, but
they are.
We would catch a lot of suckers. And there's about 3 or 4 different varieties of suckers we'd catch. I haven't caught a sucker in my net in 20 years. They're gone.
Yeah.
It's just our lakes. We have neighborhoods around them with fertilizer and motor oil flushing into the lake, and that pretty much eliminates any type of animal that needs a clean environment.
Same with the eel. I think that's probably why the eel's not around much.
Even crawdads. The crawdads aren't even in the creeks anymore. A lot of the frogs won't reproduce. So invertebrates and crustaceans, they are affected, they say, first from toxic crap and like stuff that's coming off your car,
Right.
from the oil. The car that's driving by there every day, dripping a couple drops of oil. When it rains, it goes into the little bar ditch. It used to have, when I was a kid, had crawfish. We go catch our crawfish and go catch catfish off crawdad.
That was fun.
You can't even hardly catch a crawdad now in the bar ditch.
Well, we got plenty of zebra mussels if you need any of those.
Yeah. What's crazy is I don't ever get stopped by the game warden. 3 years ago. How long ago was the pandemic? 4 years.
I guess it's probably about 4 years ago.
4 years.
Yeah.
4 years ago during the pandemic, the game warden, this was the state game warden. They were at my boat ramp with freaking dogs sniffing. And I'm like, what are you guys sniffing for? I'm thinking drugs, why would the game warden have drug sniffing? They're like, no, we're sniffing for zebra mussels. Like, what? Yes, the damn state game warden was there with zebra mussel sniffing dogs.
They were sniffing for people putting their boat into the water to make sure they weren't contaminating Louisville.
Taking their boat in, taking the boat out. Yes, sniffing the boat for zebra mussels.
And what if it had it on there? Would they write you a ticket?
I don't know. I didn't go into all that. I was like, well, I'm clear. I'm getting the fuck out of here.
I saw someone who had a boat here in Texas, and they were taking it to like Washington State, right? And supposedly they got stopped like 12 times at different stations they have to stop at from each state to have their whole boat checked for zebra mussels. Like, it was intense, they said.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
They get into a lot of the pump house and all that stuff for these water intake stations for drinking water. It ruins the pump.
Yeah.
So, I understand what the issue is. I know certain times a year I'll catch big blue cats, that'll spit them up on my deck. If I do catch eaters, there's a certain time of year if I'm catching eaters, a lot of times they'll spit up some zebra mussels in my live well. So, I guess that's what it's from, I don't know. I've never had zebra mussels growing in my freaking boat. I don't know.
I haven't either, and I fish Texoma all the time, but I guess it's not like I'm looking for them, but I just pulled my entire motor out of my boat last week and looked in the bottom, and I didn't see anything.
Fat Cat says, I eat crawfish. That's not bait. That is true. But the crawfish that we catch in the bar ditch, you would not want to eat those little suckers. Zebra mussels sound like good bait. Yeah. I think that's why guys use chicken. They're mimicking a mussel that's been crushed open been floating around.
I know guys that walk the bank at Texoma and find mussels. I guess these are probably not zebra mussels. I guess there's some kind of freshwater clam or mussel, and they're bigger.
I've seen freshwater. When we camped at Texoma with my buddy, we saw crabs.
Yeah.
His son's like, there's crabs. And I'm like, freaking crabs. And he's like, yeah, he caught one. It's a little freshwater crab. I'm like, dang.
I caught one last week. I was drifting, and I snagged someone's hat, someone's ball cap in the bottom of the lake up there, and I snagged it, and I pulled it up, and there's a crab running across the bill of it.
That's magic. You got crab.
But those guys would break open those mussels on the bank and take out the middle and hook it on a hook and would catch fish on it.
Yeah. A lot of guys doing that.
Yeah.
Corey Jeffers, what's up, bro? Welcome in. Fat Cat says chicken sucks at bait. I don't know. I've never used it as bait. I know guys catch fish on it. I mostly from I know a guy. Oh, I've caught this giant fish on them, but I know a lot of really high level anglers. Fresh bait.
Fresh bait. I've seen Catfish Dave put a whole chicken breast on a 12-aught hook and catch a big fish, but that was a one-time deal. He was just doing it because Dieter Melhorn was doing it, and they were messing with each other.
Well, I see those guys fishing, and when they start out fishing me, I might start using it. But,
yeah. No, you don't see him using it anymore. He did it for like a week.
I triple those guys' production.
Yeah.
If you start out fishing me with it, I might say, chicken. But I have a lot of guys that fish right up next to me, and they're like, how'd you do? I'll pull up and say, how'd you do? And they'll say, oh, well, they weren't touching the shad. We caught 12 off chicken. I'm like, really? How big? They're like, up to 6 pounds. How'd you do?
You're like 340s, couple 20s, 30s.
And I actually feel bad because I'm like, because they're thinking, man, this asshole. I'm like, yeah, we got 2 40s, a 50, 6 30s. All come off shad.
I was on the boat with you when the guy next to us didn't catch a fish, and you and I were just taking them off one after the other. So,
yeah. Just because you're in the right area and you got bait on the hook doesn't mean you're going to catch fish. There's a lot more to it. I think presentation is probably an overlooked thing when it comes to catching big catfish.
Yeah.
There's putting the presentation. I believe I could put a variety of baits on there if I present it to them correctly. They're going to eat. They're going to eat a lot of it. They don't just always want one bait. There's certain days that's true. And there are better baits than others, but I can have success. I've done it. My whole life, I've used all different baits. My 2 lake record day at Louisville come off drum. That's not typically a bait that I use. That day, that's what I could catch. And, thank God I had it because I only had a few of the other baits, and they didn't want that. They liked them drum.
Daniel Armstrong loves drum. He can catch them at Ray Roberts, little drum. Not big ones, but like where he uses 1 per bait, and that's his favorite,
Jeff, you got that right, buddy.
I already know that's true.
On the boat, and I even told Matt the day we fished, I'm like, man, we're fishing a no-win day. I expect we're going to catch fish, but I don't think it's going to be a great day. And he's like, we got Jackson. We're going to be fine.
The first 30 minutes of that day, we were staring at each other like, oh, man. And then by the time we left, we caught 650 pounds of fish.
Yeah, we were smoking them, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is something to that, Jeff. And Jeff was the same way. I fished with him one time this summer. I'm like, Jeff, it's post-spawn. It's going to suck, man. We had decent wind, but it was July. It was end of July, maybe early August. He's like, man, we got Jackson. We ended up catching like a high 40, a low 40, couple 30s. I'm like, God almighty. There is something having somebody lucky on the boat.
That was one of those days you were supposed to only catch channel catfish too on accident,
Oh, Jeff, we might catch, 10, 15 eaters.
Yeah.
And we ended up just hammering big fish. Now, one of them was Jeff caught a big fish. I caught one that had a head on it like this, but the body was just so emaciated.
Oh.
It's a giant-headed male. It was just so scrawny, and you could see every rib bone. I'm like, damn, this fish is a high 40, but man, in the winter, boy, I wonder what this thing would have weighed. It would have probably had 20 more pounds of meat on it. It was that skinny.
Yeah, he probably hadn't eaten in a while. He'd been spawning.
Yeah, it looked rough, but that was a good trip, Jeff. I had a good time on that one, man.
Action Jackson on the boat never hurts. Heck, that's one of the reasons I buy the hooks, just so I have the name on my boat.
Yeah, a lot of guys like, what do I got to do? I'm like, just put that freaking 4-leaf clover on your boat. And just
That's right. That's right.
Trust in that luck, because and there's just something about confidence, I mean, I always say you have confidence. You got to have a little bit of reality to understand how the day you think's going to go, but then also expect, even on a bad day, I always expect I got a chance. I always got a chance.
Yeah.
Expectations are low, but I'm expecting on a low day to at least get one good one.
That's what keeps you going back. That's why you wake up in the morning excited, or you can't go to sleep. Like, you always thinking about, man, there's a chance. I put bait in the water. I'm dragging across the lake that have big fish in it. You have a chance.
So at this time of year, if you're pulling boards, we just had a rain. Get up around the inlet, man. And I mean, we had a little bit of rain today. We had a lot of rain yesterday. I mean, at the inlet. I mean, where the water is coming in, and just start there and go the opposite direction. If the wind's too strong, you got light wind, you can go however you want. That's where I would start. I would start up in the inlet and drag my way out. If you're able to drag, a lot of times the inlet's not draggable on a lot of fisheries. My lakes, it's very difficult to drag the inlet.
On my lake, I was so shallow, my drift socks wouldn't open. I mean, I was almost to where my boat was stuck. That's where I start.
That was us last weekend. When I pulled the sock up, it was digging.
You're right.
Dug up mud into the sock. It was full of mud. Like, yeah, you're shallow when your sock's digging.
That's a good spot to be.
Yeah. So I'm ordering Mad Catz 3.0 green rods, my next safety bonus. You'll love those rods. Those 3.0s, I believe they got the new Positrack handles. Awesome handles. I love those grips. I've got some of the I got the Gremlin carbines that have that same Positrack handle. I love those handles.
We saw those at CatCon, right? We held them. Those handles are awesome.
They're awesome. They stay clean. So number one thing, the best thing about them is they won't get slimed up and hold that slime. That catch, I have a spot I check on no matter what time of year. Do you have a spot around your area? I know Matt's got some spots he likes on his home lake. My home lake, I can't fish a spot. Now, I have spots within the lake that I will check depending on a lot of different variables. Mainly, it's going to be seasonal migrational pattern. And then the number two thing is the weather pattern. So those two are the major factors to determine where I'm going to look for them in the fishery. I can't just go to a spot and there be fish there. It just, in most lakes, it's not work that way.
I have a spot on my lake. It takes everything I have to drive over it without throwing a bait out. Hey, you look at my fish finder.
I had it one of the biggest takedowns I've ever had.
That's a good spot.
And I lost a 40 and a 30 there as well. It was a weird bite day. That day we only caught one fish. I was with Jeff, I believe, that day, and we caught a 30.
Right.
Cleaner and some eaters, which I took it as a victory. But if we would have caught those other three fish, we'd been heroes. Thinking, oh man,
yeah,
we're awesome. We got the guy. I had talked to the guides that were out there. Later when I got home, they all got skunked.
Right.
And I told Jeff when we were leaving the lake, I bet you nobody did better than us out here. I mean, I feel like we did pull out a victory. We fished our asses off that day to catch 5, 6, 7 fish.
Yeah, sometimes there are those spots on the lake where, you know, you are super confident on that spot. And if that's the way it is, then, you know, fish it. Fish the spot. You got nothing to lose. The worst thing that happened, you don't catch a fish in an hour, move on. But if you love that spot, then, you know, try it, especially if you're close.
So, Jeff, 20 to 30 on Texoma is different than 20 to 30 on any other lake. For one, if you're fishing the inlet, it's shallow. The waves are much shorter together. It's going to be like this. It's going to be a rough deal. If you're out in the big water, it's oceanic at over 20 mile an hour. Now, when I'm on any other lake, 20 is just right in my wheelhouse. I'm like, yes, 20. 30, I'm like, this stuff, man, I can't hold my lines. My boards are pulling off. Can't get my boards to pull right. I'm catching a lot fewer fish because the presentation is just everything is getting jerked. Keeping
your boat slow enough.
Yeah, I'm taking rollers over the transom.
Yeah. 15, 20 is about like where I max out. Will I fish in 25 mile an hour winds? Yeah, because I love to fish, and I know if I ain't gonna catch them on the couch, but I don't love it. You know, that's not ideal.
Once train in West Texas, just a small cold came in, but headed back up today. Heated back up today, and will tomorrow. Well, they're going to move shallow, and they're starting to look. They're starting to get around spawning habitat. So, creek inlets, stump fields, those are the areas you're going to want to be in right now. Targeting, moving shallower. It's almost over, man. The big fish bite is rapidly coming to an end for us here. We got maybe 3 more weeks, you know, and then it's done. And maybe even less if it really heats up. Killer B said it's Tex Ocean.
It is. This can be dangerous.
Matt, 25 miles an hour in your John boat. 25 miles an hour in your John boat, and the John boat will be in the bottom of that lake.
Guaranteed. Yeah, I have a 24-foot Falcon that handles rough water.
3.5-foot bay boat, and it's built for big water. And at 25 miles an hour on that lake, you're starting to think, boy, I'm the only one out here. I might need to start rethinking my
Last Tuesday, I was the only one on Texoma, and one of the reasons was the wind was blowing 25 mile an hour to the west, and going from Highport out west, their waves were huge.
Yeah. You need to come on home, Alex. Jump on, but really, buddy, party's almost over here. I mean, we go chase gator gar with my boy Jesse Campbell. And those are fun to catch. You're going to come back home to come fish. Come in October, we can go up to Texoma. October, November, I'm generally up at Texoma. December, I go back to Louisville. January, February, I'm at Lavon. And then end of February, March, April, I'm back up at Texoma. Looking for that hundo. Jeff says he's definitely going to hit you up on the flathead.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm going to try some night trips with the live scope this summer too. I got a lot of lights on my boat. We'll spot lock and put the live scope. I've marked, I can't tell you, I'm on the lake all the time. Anytime I see a big tree in like 30, 40, 50 foot of water in the bottom, I mark it, flathead tree on my depth finder. So we can literally hop from tree to tree to tree with big baits. It should be good.
Josh, waits until after the 3-arc tournament. So water, here's the way I look at it. We always catch good fish up until the threadfin spawn. Once the threadfin spawns over, it's like over, man. I mean, it's like the fish move back out deep, but the big fish leave and go do their thing. So you can catch eaters up to 10 pounds.
They say, hey, up in my neck of the woods, I live in Van Alstyne, and these guys are telling me at the American Legion the other day, they go, Matt, when that wheat turns brown, that catfishing's over, dude. I said, okay, that's about the same time. But so everybody has their own way of telling when you know it's over.
Richard says South Texas opened a new lake, and I have not heard about that lake. I know East Texas has a new lake that's opening.
Bodart.
I expect that to be a great lake 20 years from now.
A lot of big bass in that lake. They're putting Florida Shan bass in there. There's so many bass fishermen pumped about that lake, but who knows what else is going to be in there. Should be a good lake.
Yeah. Anytime they leave all that standing timber like that, generally helps for all fish.
Right.
And Texas is good about doing that since the late 80s. Jeff Martin, say when. I only get 7 weeks vacation a year. 7 weeks only.
Yeah, hey, yeah, 7 weeks is pretty good. Hey, hit me up on Messenger. We'll set something up.
Well, on and it's warmer. You're screwed. It's been cooler here. I believe it's going to be a little bit later. But even with cooler temperatures, there's more. That temperature is just an indicator for them. A lot of it is the daylight. They just. Temperature is one of the factors, but it's also the length of the day. Even if it stays cooler, they're going to say, okay, we're going to go do it anyway. We're going to go spawn anyway.
Right.
And so,
especially with the rain, like if the lake was really low, then maybe that would change. But we got plenty of water in Texoma where they're about to be gone.
Catfish will spawn in the mid-60s. I mean,
yeah.
They will. They just prefer it in the mid-70s.
We're in the mid-60s already.
Yeah. So they're already, some of them are already looking, and I believe this last rain, some of them left, went to their spawning ground. They're already burrowing up and starting to look, doing their little dance for a female.
Yeah, we actually talked about that. We had some big fish up in 3 to 5 foot of water, and we're like, either they went up the river, or when that cold front came, or that little bit came, or they went back out to 15, 20 foot. But I guarantee you some of them are already up the Red in the Ouachita River. So
yeah. I agree. The better fish generally take up the high value real estate. And to get to that high valued real estate, they need to get there first.
That's right.
Even for a giant fish, it's hard for him to go into a hole of a fish that's just a little bit smaller than him.
Maybe I need to ask Killer B where he's fishing. He said 65 on Monday at Texoma.
I know where he's fishing. He's fishing up where I caught the 2-8.
You've been fishing where we've been fishing. I've probably seen him out there.
Fat Cat says, I expect to catch a 100-pound blue cat in the next 3 weeks. You do this every year. Do you have any advice on depression? You know what? I expect to catch a 100-pounder too, but I don't know if it's going to happen this year. It's just going to happen sometime.
All of us. I hope all of us catch one.
That's why I'm up there. It's not just because I'm hoping, but I believe if I keep doing it, I'll get me one. There's
just
not
put
a lot
them.
of get caught out of Texas, but
Everybody just put them back in when you catch them.
All right, Bruce, buddy. Josh Davis says Wallard, and they are. I think it looked to me like one of those fish I caught last weekend had already been chewing, wallering a little bit. I believe the 280s I caught, even though they were on separate drifts, I think they were a pair. I think they were paired up because we caught the second one in the exact spot that we caught the first one. And it wasn't like we were hitting a certain piece of structure. We were just in an area. I just went over the same line, and we nailed almost an identical fish as the first one. One to me looked like a big-headed male. The first one was a giant-headed male, much longer. The female, which I thought was weird, the female, which, it did have a smaller mouth, which is why I thought the second one was the female. Much smaller mouth, but the girth on the female was just crazy, way bigger than the male, which is not typically the way that I catch large male and females. Usually, most of the giant fish we catch are males. And that 83 is the biggest female I've ever caught. We generally don't catch big females over 50. I don't know why. It's just big male. I believe that was a pair, and the second fish looked like it's been chewing and biting on. It was bloody. The mouth of it was bloody. It was all bit up.
They were on a date before they head up the river to breed. And
on a date.
Yeah, how many? Can you think about how the girth on that female was? How many eggs is she going to put in the lake this year? Probably amazing number.
I didn't the second fish. I thought that one's nowhere near as big as the first one.
Right.
Because a male, the head's just giant. When I look at the head on that thing. The second one, I'm like, oh, that's definitely not as big as the first one. But it was almost identical in weight. It's like 3-pound difference. The mouth was much smaller. The girth was much bigger. And it was like maybe 2-3 inches shorter than the male, which I know is weird. The females are supposed to be more proportionate. But I guess it was full of eggs is all I could think is that thing was full of eggs.
That'd be awesome.
It was fish of a lifetime. And I told like the first one, I'm like, fish of a lifetime, you lucky son of a gun. Another one, and I'm like, fish of a lifetime, we all lucky. This is crazy.
That's right. They said, Chris put that post, how do you catch all these big fish consistently? And Chris Wheeler, I think, said, follow Chris around the lake. And I said, that's a pretty good way to do it.
Oh, man.
Ask him if you can borrow Action Jackson for a trip on your boat. Maybe you'll get one.
I don't know why, but some of our biggest, baddest fish have come in pairs. When we catch some of our best fish, we almost have another bookend like it within 5-10 minutes of catching that first one. Now, this one was not the case, but it was in the exact same area. That's why I think they were probably a breeding pair that were already paired up, and it was right after a rain. It was fairly close to a rain, and they were up in heading up into their spawning grounds. So
the best part of that is Chris is the kind of guy to put them back in, and they're still up there.
Yeah, that's important. Got to put them back so somebody else can get them, and especially since they're about to breed. I mean, those eggs that they lay in 20 years might be another world record. I mean, who knows? Who's to say different? If I hauled one of those fish out right now, I mean, how many fish are you removing out of the lake for the next 20 years? Because
on a female that big, the number's probably crazy.
Fat Cat says, I can good fish in 65 feet on water one week and then the fish in 20 feet the next week. Is this a sign of early spawn? It really depends on your fishery. Texoma's a lot different. We got a good guide buddy of ours that's been catching them out in 70 feet. He's catching higher numbers, but We got the 280s up in 7 feet. So is it a sign of the spawn? I would say I start thinking about the spawn in the spring when the water starts hitting 60. I believe the biggest fish start moving towards spawning ground before the rest of the fish because they're smarter. They want the high valued real estate. They start getting up there a little bit closer so that when there is a big rain event, they can go up and start looking. I think it's the rain event that sends them up there.
Right.
They start moving that direction before the rain hits. So
Yeah, and then he said Mississippi River and Vicksburg, and to be honest, personally, I don't know the answer to that question because I don't know what the spawn's like on the Mississippi River. I can just tell you what it's like on the lakes in Texas, but I'm sure there's little tricks there too that someone local could probably fill you in on some pretty good info.
I know some of my buddies that fish the Mississippi for 100-pounders like Epic Catfish. He said when they start moving to spawning habitat, you're looking for secondary creeks that are flowing into the river. Smaller tributaries they're getting to spawn in there. They want to get out of the current. They want to get up into maybe the secondary creeks, the smaller tributaries, looking for a little bit of a break. To spawn, the eggs need a little bit of very light flow. In a lake, there's no flow, so the fish fans them, with his tail. But in a river, they move out of that big flow. I know from my buddies over the years have told me when they're catching them, like right before the spawn, they're moving up out of that heavier current.
That would make sense.
Dan, what's up, man? Welcome in, bro. It's been a while. Let me get caught up.
Wait, we've been on here for 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah, we'll be doing it soon. I'm having a good time, man.
No, me too. I wasn't saying I'm getting off. It's gone by fast because we've been talking, having fun.
Richard Green says, I have a 19-foot tunnel hole. It hates wind and choppy water. Prepared to get your butt soaked. Yeah, that's definitely a problem with a tunnel hole. Fish out the back, man. Fish out the back. It'll help. Gosh, our local trail Tennessee Magcatters don't host tournaments from the beginning of May to July to let them spawn. That way they're not pulled from the nest. Well, Josh, you're not pulling a blue cat from the nest. Maybe you can get one if you put the bait in the nest. They typically don't feed much during the spawn. They will bite something as a defense mechanism that gets anywhere near their nest. But there's a reason guys don't catch a lot of blue cats during the spawn. And there's a reason why when the spawn's over, the fish you're catching are emaciated. They starve themselves. They won't even hardly eat during the spawn. I know a flathead's pretty much the same way. I've heard a flathead will come off the nest to feed occasionally, whereas blue cats go into starvation mode.
Yeah, I think the flathead will come off the nest at nighttime, maybe eat real fast to go back in the hole. But I think a blue cat, they're probably not moving very far.
Yeah, I've heard from what I've read from the fish hatcheries and stuff that watch them, they don't leave the nest. Especially the bigger they get, the bigger and badder they get, they are really good at propagating their fry. And to do that, If you leave the nest, something's going to eat them. So they just sit there and starve. That's why they feed up so heavy right before pre-spawn. That's why they're now is a great time to catch them because they're feeding. You kind of know where they're headed towards if you know what their spawning habitat is. A lot of these fisheries, the biggest fish in the fisheries are caught right now, pre-spawn. Even though they might have been a little bit bigger in February after the winter feed up because they're lethargic and they just gorge themselves. But they're just very more active, more aggressive, and they generally head up into certain areas right now to feed.
That's why we got to fish on Friday. See you then.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm fired up now, buddy. All right.
Anytime I'm talking about fishing, I'm always wanting to go fishing.
Yeah, if you're releasing back, it's a better chance. I heard some guy saying about that state record that was caught, saying, "Oh, the stress of catching it. That fish is too old to spawn anyway." Anybody who's telling you that is just blowing smoke. They have no idea what they're talking about. There is a big blue catfish breeds until it dies, and the older they get, the better they are at breeding. And catching a giant will not kill it. Micah Burkhart caught a 121 pounder, and 2 years later or a year later, he caught the same fish. It was not dead. I mean, it did not kill it the first time he caught it. Even through all the picture taking and weighing process, it went back into the river, and he caught it the very next year within a week of the time he caught it the year before. The fish was fine. I catch tons of fish that have fresh hook marks in them that are less than a month, 2 months old in their mouth that somebody else has just caught. They did not die from being caught by another angler. That's a crock of crap. And that's just a big fish killer trying to justify in his mind keeping big fish. They don't die when you catch them. If you put them back in the water, they're living.
Yeah.
That's baloney.
The state record caught here by Cody Molinex was put in a tank down in Nacogdoches by Texas Parks and Wildlife, and that fish lived in that tank for 2 years, and then it died. But Cody personally told me, he said, if I catch another one that big, I'm going to put it right back in the lake.
I would agree. You can't take a 120-something pound fish and put it in a fish tank and expect it to live out its life. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
You
can go to Bass Pro Shop, Cabela's, and Allen, and you can see the catfish in there. And 2 months later, you go, it's a different fish because that other fish didn't make it most of the time.
Right. Yeah, they need activity. They need to be stimulated. They need to be eating and moving, and they need sunlight, and nighttime. And I mean, you don't get all that stuff living in an aquarium. So,
right. Oh, a guy said Splash lived comfortably for 5 years. So my mistake. I guess I said 2 years. I guess it was 5.
Yeah. I wish more people would take care of the big fish, but hopefully we'll get there. Well, Matt, anything else before we get going, man?
No, I appreciate it. Man, anything you ever need, you're a good friend. It's hard to find good friends. So I appreciate everything. And if you need me back on here or whatever, I love talk fishing.
Yeah,
so
yeah, you have a good time talking fishing. Appreciate everybody that spent some time with us tonight. Matt, I'm going to put you on the Carolina Lake Weights Pro staff. You're already, pretty much doing it.
I got the shirt on. Backwards here. I got the shirt on.
Yeah. I also want to say Carolina Lake Weights has got a new decal machine. Jamie's not here tonight. His mom had it's her 68th birthday party. But Carolina Lake Weights is now doing decals. If you got, if you've got boat decals you want to put on your boat for if you got sponsors, if you want to put custom decals for whatever, your channel, your fishing team, if you want to do anything like that, you want to put boat names, letters, numbers, they'll make custom decals for you. They can make them as long as you want. The strips, I believe, you can go 20 inches. So if it's bigger than 20 inches, it'll have to be in sections. But I think that's super cool, man. I can't wait to get some decals made. We're gonna get some a little program going for the slime show. It's gonna be let me show you guys what our idea is before we go. We're gonna do decals for let me remove that comment.
I need to be a part of this club.
So we're going to do decals. I'm going to put a little Carolina Lake Weights logo on there as well, but we're going to do these decals each week within the Carolina Lake Weights Facebook group. So guys can post their big fish picks for the week, and we'll send you a decal depending on what fish you post. It's going to say the Slime Show Catfish Club. It'll probably have a little Carolina Lake Weights logo, and then it'll say what class of fish that you caught. So
those look cool.
I don't know how big they'll be. They'll probably be 5 inches, maybe 4 or 5 inches. Just something cool for guys to get excited about. Matt, I'm gonna put you on the pro staff. So
I appreciate it, buddy.
You've been a good friend. I know you'll be a great teammate. Danimal says, I need that ticket. I virtually caught a 100-pounder the other night when I watched a video on YouTube. Well, we got you into the 50-pound club on the War Machine. We got Dominic into the 40-pound club, so you got a couple of decals coming to you. I know you're not on Facebook, but I can post some pictures for you and get you some decals. Richard Green says 2-pounder. He's in the 2-pound club. Can you discuss ugliness again? I don't know what that were we discussing ugly?
I don't know. Maybe jug liners.
Oh God.
We better get off of here.
All right, guys. We appreciate everybody stopping in, spending some time with us. I don't have a guest lined up next week, but we'll get somebody in the works. Matt, appreciate you coming on with me, buddy. I'll
had a great time.
Sometime tomorrow, we'll see if we can maybe get out Friday and go hit the lake, see if we can get something giant.
Sounds good. I had a great time, buddy.
At least we go get some lines wet, hang out for Friday fishing. So
Action Jackson needs school off on Friday. Thanks, Mom.
I know. We're going to be in trouble without that boy.
Tell his mom I said I'll write him a letter. It'll be fine.
Man, we need that kid. We need that kid.
All right, buddy.
All right, man. We'll see you guys. Tight lines. God bless.
Good night, everybody.
Out.
Thanks, buddy.